Hi everyone! Welcome to our live chat with Vivian Probst, author of the romantic comedy Death by Roses. Vivian, thanks so much for joining us today. We're thrilled to have you here to talk about your new book.
Thank you. I'm just as thrilled to be there with you.
Yes, lovely with her yellow rose necklace, which I love, absolutely. So before we start our questions, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Vivian. She actually entered a writing contest and she won the opportunity to have her book published. And when she was awarded the Literary Trifecta Award, she was given a publisher, a literary agent, and a publicity campaign, which is a pretty sweet deal. And we're so happy that she is here today. And before we start, I also wanted to remind everyone watching that BookTrib is hosting a caption contest where you can win a dozen roses from Surroundings Flowers from New York, and you can send it to someone special for this Valentine's Day. So, Vivian, can you tell us a little bit more about Death by Roses before we start the questions?
Yeah, the plot of the story is about a couple who's been married for quite a long time and they have fallen out of love with each other more as the years progress until they so dislike each other that on the day that her husband brings her a dozen roses, for the first time ever, circumstances align so that she is outraged by
Hmm.
something that he's done, so outraged that she dies on the toilet.
Wow.
She then goes into her afterlife and she's not really happy about being dead. So she goes on
Hmm.
this journey into her afterlife, sort of against her will. I like to call it kicking and screaming through the valley of the shadow of death. But she learns some incredible things. And she's determined that she's going to change the world now. She's going to go back and fix things in life, which is forbidden. You are not allowed to interfere with life on earth once you've crossed over. But she figures out a way to do it anyway, gets herself in just a mess. I don't know how much to tell you, but she's back on earth and she's sort of sharing a body with a rather cantankerous woman because it's part of
Hmm.
the consequences of violating heavenly protocol. And she's got to figure
Right.
how to get out of this mess and try to do what she really came back to Earth to do. It's just hilarious.
Sounds hilarious. Amazing. Now, I have a quick question. What made you choose yellow roses? I know that for certain things, people say send red roses for love. Is that your favorite color? What was the any significance behind that?
Well, originally, no, because the story just, I felt like I was being told the story as I was writing it down. In other words, I could see what was going on, and I even questioned why yellow roses. But eventually I understood, and here is what it is. If you understand what the colors of roses mean, yellow
Yeah.
roses are for friendship,
Mm-hmm.
happy home, and family. And
Right.
yellow roses were not the best pick because May Rose knew roses and she was not happily married, and so her husband just picked the wrong color.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah,
It was
very
the
bad
cherry
choice
on the
on his
sundae to her bad
part.
day.
And I don't want to
Right.
give too much away, but they were on sale, you see, and so he was trying to save money
Oh.
because Art McElroy's a bit of a tightwad.
Oh. So he was
Yeah,
just messing up left and right.
yeah, he was. He was.
Now, we are doing this caption contest on BookTrib. The cover is amazing. When I first saw it, I was like, wow, that is just it's so eye-catching and it just made me want to start making up lines about what it was about. So, can you tell us, like, did you have a lot of influence on the cover? Like, what was that process like?
Say that again.
What was your, influence with the cover? What was the process that you kind of went through?
Yeah, got it. Well, in as part of the contest, we had to create a cover, and I loved the cover that we
Oh.
originally created, but it was too cartoonish. for the judges. And so when they saw that cover, they challenged it. And of course, I'm this nervous, freaking out author. And I remember saying to them, well, if you don't like that cover, I can change the cover. Do you like the book, you know? And so I went back to the drawing board with an artist that was recommended to me. And
Right.
as you probably know, the toilet theme is kind of carried through the whole story, and toilets flushing mean certain things. And so the artist just came up with this, and we fell in love. We all did immediately.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Now, Addie, we have a ton of questions coming in, and Addie has a question. She says, what would you say is the hardest part of the writing process for you? Can you tell us a little bit about the process?
Oh, I sure can. For me, the hardest challenge is time. I have been
Yeah.
so blessed with this story. Death by Violets is going to be coming in the next year or so. There's so
Oh,
much that
exciting.
just moves through my mind, and having time to get it down in writing. And it's a listening process. It's a watching process, observing everything that's going on. So time is my
Mhm.
biggest challenge for sure. The characters show up. It's like I'm sort
Mhm.
of being watching a movie.
Yeah. Um, Now, Louisa has a question. She says, can you tell us more about how you chose to design your heaven? So your idea of heaven is prominent in this book.
Yes, and uh, I appreciate being told or asked that question, because the idea of heaven was also something that was given to me. Now, I think something important to say is that my older sister had passed away about 6 months
Oh,
before
okay.
this story began, and she had died of Lou
Mhm.
Gehrig's disease, and that's very, very tragic. And so I'm
Mhm.
a writer, and I was grieving through my writing, and I
Yeah.
didn't expect uh, any of this to show up. I didn't expect the afterlife to look like this. I was really writing out of curiosity about what was going to happen next. So when the afterlife showed up like this, it felt so good to me, because it was like saying,
Yeah.
you know, my sister's okay. It was just
Oh,
the most
wow. That's
amazing, amazing process. And I've had people say, boy, Vivian, I sure hope the next life is just like you wrote about it in the book.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's really touching. Wow. That's amazing. Um, Kristen has a question about reviews. She says, did you read any reviews for Death by Roses? What are people saying about the book? Or do you kind of avoid reading anything?
Oh, I read everything about any reviews, and they have been so overwhelmingly positive. The thing I get is this
Fantastic.
story really wanted to be published. It really
Mhm.
wanted to get out into the world, and I just felt like it was a gift to me, and it took 5 years to finish, but it just wanted to be published, and I just got to participate in it. It was extraordinary, extraordinary.
Now, Yolanda has a question about your favorite current books. Are you reading anything lately, that you would recommend?
Yeah, I've got a few very favorite novels. Most of the books
Hmm.
that I read are um, about mind science and human
Oh, neat.
potential. I believe
Okay.
that every one of us makes a difference in life. And certainly, if I didn't believe that before I wrote Death by Roses, I certainly believe it now. So, a couple of novels that I have just really enjoyed, recent contemporary, would be Losing Clementine,
Hmm.
detail, so that you can put yourself right into the story. So hers is currently my favorite. Uh, An author that I read everything that he writes is Paulo Coelho. He's known for The Alchemist,
Mm,
and my favorite book
yeah.
of his is The Witch of Portobello. Oh, such good books. I'm going to say that my favorite novel of all time
Mhm.
is the book A Prayer for Owen Meany.
Oh, that's great.
And that's by John Irving. And I read that how many years ago, and I have never forgotten that story. So those are
Mhm.
just a few of the titles I love.
Do you have a favorite book to movie adaptation? Kristen wants to know.
Interesting. Let me give that a moment's thought.
Yeah,
The
right.
Girl with the Pearl Earring.
Ah, that's a
If
great one.
anyone read that, oh,
Hmm.
usually I'm disappointed with the movie, but that was so rich
Yeah,
that it did a beautiful job. So that would probably be my favorite so far.
great. Louisa has another question about one of your characters. She says, Mary Lee Broadmoor is my favorite character. What did you like most about writing her, and do you know anyone like her?
Oh my goodness, Mary Lee Broadmoor kind of is an, maybe a nemesis to me. She was the character that could do and be whatever she felt like, and she didn't care what. So a piece of Mary Lee in many of us, and again, she just wrote herself into that role. And I just had to go with it. I want to tell you that not everything that I wrote in this story was easy to write. I mean,
Yeah,
Mary Lee is not a good mother.
no.
And the scenes of her with her daughter Natalie um, were just painful
Hmm.
to write. But then I realized, a lot of people go through the trauma of unhappy mothers, and she was who she was, and I had to let her be that.
Yeah. Now Addie wants to know who's your favorite character in Death by Roses.
You know, I've been asked that before, Addie, and when you create these characters, they all
Hmm.
mean something so special
Right.
to you, and it's easier to tell you which character I had the hardest time with,
Hmm.
and that would be Dr. What's the doctor's name? Dr. Gregory. Yeah, Dr. Eugene Gregory.
Yeah.
Oh, I fought with him. I said, no, I will not write this into this story. But what choice did I have?
Right.
So that's the easiest way to answer that. I will tell you that other readers just adore Mary Lee, and they love the Spitfire attitude
Yeah.
that May Rose had. May Rose is like many of us. She's trying to do her best, but she just gets lost in her rage.
Hmm.
And so and so she just can't even be nice, even when she really wants to be, because she's just so angry about so many things.
Absolutely. Um,
Hilarious.
now, Billy has a question. What's one misconception about writing a book? How long did it take you to finish Death by Roses? It's actually two questions.
Okay. Well, I think, I don't know if it's a misconception, but in my life,
Hmm.
I have had no difficulty writing.
Hmm.
And I believe that's because I wait for the story to show up.
Yeah,
There are many people who want to write, and I think we get all knotted up in what should I write, and I need
right.
to have the plot and an outline. So for me, that's really important, is just to show up and listen to what's going on inside that crazy head of yours.
Right.
And just, that's the trip. Now, what was your next question?
Oh, she said, how long did it
Memory.
take you to finish Death by Roses?
Yes, it took 5 years, and that's a long time, I think, for a writer. But but for me, it was part of my grieving process.
Yeah.
And so I think that it was just a real gift to me to be able to take my time and work through my own feelings
Exactly.
as I wrote the story.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Now Nadia wants to know, what did you learn while writing Death by Roses about, was there any surprise lessons about yourself or your writing process?
Well, number one, the biggest lesson I got is that we have a lot of choices in life, and we can choose to have a wonderful life. And May Rose certainly learns that eventually, and then she wants to, of course, go back and fix her life.
Yeah,
And, that doesn't work either. You do have to move on. But
exactly.
I think that was the biggest lesson that I have a wonderful life. I have a wonderful marriage. I have a wonderful business. I love to write these books. And yet, even then, you can find things that bother you, and you get to choose whether you're just going to let that take over your life, or whether you're going to have take a more um, cheerful approach to life. And I learned through writing that book what a wonderful life I have. And so my biggest focus every day is to just live from that place
Hmm.
and enjoy life. And then I guess the other thing is I've lived my whole life with an acute fear of death, so acute
Wow.
that I thought about it every day. From the
Mm.
time I was taught, now I lay me down to sleep,
Oh yeah.
and if I should die before I wake,
Isn't that the
it's like,
scariest?
oh,
I know.
yeah,
The
oh,
scariest
children, we
prayer.
give them that message. So
Oh.
writing this book was such a relief because I felt like, well, maybe it's, I'm not ready, but maybe there's something wonderful that I just really appreciated that. I felt so taken care of.
Hmm. That's
My
fantastic.
anxieties and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's
It's
like
hilarious.
it's a cathartic process for sure.
Yes, it is.
Um,
Yes, it is.
Now you mentioned Death by Violets, which we're very excited to hear about. And Nadia has a question that I could kind of tie into that. She says, if you could choose a minor character from your book to feature in another book, which character would you choose and why? So I guess, we want to know, is everyone in this book going to be in the next one? What's kind of the plan for that?
Well, I'm sort of with all of you. I have to wait.
Yeah.
Uh, and there's a few things that I know are going on, and
Hmm.
like for instance, I know that Cheryl Lewis is going to play a big role. Cheryl married Art McElroy, so
Yeah.
she's now Cheryl McElroy. She's going to play a big role because she's a detective, and she's
Hmm.
going back into her detective role. So I know she's coming along, and I know that the so-called heavenly host, as you will be present on some level, engaged in some amusing or amazing
Yeah.
activities.
That's exciting. So have you started the writing it at all, or is it just ideas in your head at this point?
Yeah, no, it's writing. It's
Woo!
writing. And so I'm getting just the first glimpses, and I have no idea where it's going. But it is writing, and it claims me.
Yeah.
It's when you're writing, you have to write when the muse wants you to write, whether you think you really want to write or not. You just do it because
Hmm.
it's so captivating.
Hmm. Yeah, it is. It really is. When I speak with other authors during these chats, they always kind of, it's interesting that they'll start a story out and they have a certain idea for a character, and then the character really just like comes alive and like takes them by the hand and leads them. Did you have that experience with any of the characters in Death by Roses?
Oh, oh, all of them,
Yeah.
absolutely. Even, as I said earlier, into places I didn't really want to go.
Right.
There's a little sass in Death by Roses, and I like to tell people it's not 50 Shades of Gray.
Right.
None of that. But I turned 50 Shades of Red while I was writing it because some of it went way beyond my comfort zone, but
Oh, wow.
it's just it's just fun. It just made the story even more fun.
Hmm. Um,
Uh,
Shelley has an interesting question. I really like it. She says, if you could give your 14-year-old self advice, what would it be? That's a tough one.
oh, honey. Oh, honey, don't.
That's crazy.
All that stuff that you're so afraid of, honey. Just that. Here, come let me give you a big hug. Because you're going to have a far more wonderful life than you can imagine.
Hmm.
You just give all of those fears to me and let them go. And you go out and have a good time and just play with your life. Oh, you have no idea how wonderful it's going to be.
That's great advice. Shelley also wants to know, she says, could you see Death by Roses made into a movie, and who would you cast as your main characters? Any ideas?
Whoa. Well, yes, and actually during the contest, the agents, the New York agents I was working with said to me, you know you've written a movie, don't you?
Oh,
And
fantastic.
well, I did not know that, but that was their comment. So
Yeah.
there certainly is the possibility for a movie, and I've had people suggest all kinds of amazing characters, actors for characters.
Hmm.
The one that really comes home to me, and the one I know I wrote a character around, is Art McElroy Sr.
Hmm.
And all I saw in my mind was William Hurt. I don't know if
Oh,
you know him as an actor, but he
yeah.
has this face that carries his emotions.
Hmm.
And Art McElroy is just so full of pain and agony from the torture of living with Mate Rose for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I can just see him in that role.
Yeah,
It just is so natural for me.
it's
So
perfect.
that's one. And again, I've had other people suggest great characters. That's the one that I really wrote with that person in my mind.
Mhm. Now, if you could write a book with another author, who would you want to write it with? And what kind of book do you think you'd want to collaborate on?
Oh, wow. Oh, my. Um, right now, I feel like I already have another author. Um, I have this, this. I think otherwise, yes. I'm coming back at that question another way.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Ashley Ream, Lisa Scodeline,
Hmm.
um, really the fun uh, drama, but some sassy. Chris Radish, who used to live in Wisconsin.
Hmm.
Yeah, that would be fun. But it
Yeah.
would be like, if I can say, sort of a menage a trois, because there's
Mhm.
already two of us writing in my
Yeah,
life.
great.
So you'd have to come in as a third.
Yeah, that's fine. Perfect.
Maybe I'll
Now,
show up for that, yes.
so before we went live, you were telling me some fun things you were doing to celebrate your release day. So can you tell us a little bit about that? I really enjoyed hearing it.
Yes, well, I needed to launch something, because it's called a book launch. And since, you know, there's no rockets handy and it's the middle of winter and you can't, fireworks are a bit difficult, I decided I would launch myself on my toboggan. We have lots of snow in Milwaukee.
Oh yeah.
Our home is built on a hill, and all
Hmm.
I have to do is go out to the barn, grab my toboggan, and I can sail away. So let me tell you this, you can see this on our blog.
Oh great.
So when I did my first run this morning,
Hmm.
the snow was very slow,
Hmm.
and the toboggan stopped on top of our septic mound.
Oh
And I'm
no.
like, really?
Uh,
Really? On my book launch?
yeah.
It's, and I look at the symbolism of all this,
Yeah.
and it was so hilarious. So I made two more runs down the hill that got me over the septic. And if anybody wants to see my philosophical interpretation of the toboggan stopping on the septic, they can read that on my blog at deathbyroses.com. And then
Awesome.
the other amazing thing that happened was I have a friend who
Yeah.
loves to make different ice creams. And
Awesome.
he made a frozen yellow rose ice cream. We will definitely be posting that on
Yeah.
deathbyroses.com.
Yeah, we want
And
to see it.
he sent me pictures of it because he's in Washington D.C. So,
Oh, that's
but he's going to
fantastic.
send the recipe, and it was a beautiful yellow rose, and he had sugared rose petals on the
Oh,
dish. Isn't that fabulous?
yes. Oh my
Loved
gosh.
it.
Can't wait to see the pictures. Speaking of
Oh,
flowers, Jane wants to know what is your favorite kind of flower? Is it roses?
oh, Rose. And if you could see my house, my husband, uh, ever since we were married,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I told him this much, but he has always made it a habit
Mm-hmm.
to bring me a dozen roses whenever he can. So I
Oh,
have wonderful arrangements of dried dozens of roses. And you can get them at the grocery store for $10.
yeah.
And so my husband is no Art McElroy, let me just tell you. Although he was responsible for the barn cat scene. So,
Oh, really?
anyone who hasn't read the book yet, he did bring home a couple of barn cats, and we had enough of an episode with those to help me write that scene into the story.
Oh, that's great. So, Clark wants to know what are some activities you like to pursue outside of writing?
Well, okay, Clark, I have to think about that. Let's see, there's reading and there's writing
And not
and
much
spending
else,
time with my husband.
right?
We both travel quite a bit. We
Mm-hmm.
have 5 children between us, 11 grandchildren,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a cabin in the North Woods. We love good wine. We love good movies.
Oh,
We
wonderful.
love small, intimate gatherings.
Yeah.
And you'd have to maybe ask, I don't even know if I have, do I do anything? I have a business I run,
Oh,
and so I spend a lot of time on the road. I teach tax regulations,
mm-hmm.
and that's great fodder for novels. Just let me tell you. So I'm kidding, of course. So I keep very busy, very active, and I love my life.
Excellent. Um, so back to Death by Violets. Just can you just tell us like maybe one or two lines about like where that's gonna go, where it's gonna take us? Because we're really excited. We want to hear more.
Okay, I have
Without
to
giving
ask
away too
the
much.
muse. Yes, I have to ask the muse for permission.
Okay.
Um, I think what I can tell you
Mm-hmm.
is the main character will be Violet Lynn Murphy.
Ah, I like it.
And Violet has a very unusual personality uh, and and gifts that most of the world cannot appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so there is a sense in which a message that I'm getting
Mm-hmm.
about that story is how we look at people that we consider disabled
Ah, okay.
and the gifts that they really bring the world. Now, there was a hint of this in Death by Roses in one
Right.
scene where Mary Lee is talking about writing another book, and she is working on something with the issue of disabled people and how we just don't see
Mm.
the gifts that they have. So I think I can say that much before I get my mouth taped.
Yeah. Well, that sounds absolutely intriguing. I have one last question for you. I just want to know what it was like the day that you found out that you won the contest. I can only imagine.
Oh, yes, and we didn't find out until the evening because
Hmm.
they kept us in suspense all day.
Oh, wow.
We had to sit through dinner, and there were 4 finalists, and then there were 5 categories that we were point scored on, and it was just like the Academy Awards. They opened the envelopes. There
Oh,
were
wow.
three judges, five categories. That means there were 15 envelopes, and they had to open them. They had to read out the points. They had to add them all together. I watched the board very closely for any mathematical errors, and and the last category was the largest, and there were 40 points for the manuscript. So up until then, anyone could have won. Death by Roses was ahead, but
Mm.
it wasn't till the manuscript that we really knew. And I don't even know if I can even remember those moments. I just went into this space of such joy and gratitude, and like I almost couldn't believe it. Um, and
Yeah.
you know,
Life changing.
trying to relive that, it's beyond my comprehension. My book is now published. People are going to see this in bookstores and on
Yeah.
Amazon and online, and I'm still like, I'm
Hmm.
still in that same zone of
Yeah. So amazing.
wow.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
thrill. And we're so
it
happy
is.
that you won, and we love the book, and we love the cover. And I just want to remind everybody watching that we're doing the caption contest, so you can, write in what you think the cover means, or just like a nice funny line about it, anything on booktrib.com. And then you can be entered to win roses from Surroundings Flowers. So I just wanted to say thank you so much again for joining us. It's been so much fun.
Yes, and just know it's available anywhere that you get books and online,
Exactly.
and
Hmm.
we do have autographed copies available at
Oh,
deathbyroses.com if you're
fantastic.
interested.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much and have a great release day. Take that champagne out
Thank you
and
so much.
thank you. Have a great one. Take care.
Thanks so much. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.